Good afternoon or evening, I should say, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another monthly Department of Emergency Management and Security monthly webinar. So, if you didn't hear, we are now in meteorological winter. So it is the time for snow, it is the time for the holidays and family, Thanksgiving's out the door, and now we're getting ready for, more of the colder themed holidays like Christmas, whichever you celebrate, and the New Year's. So, to really rock into the meteorological winter, we have a special guest today, Ellen Kamilakis, and she works for the Virginia Department of Transportation. And she's going to be telling us all about winter road safety, which, Ellen, I'm sure you can agree is super important in the DC metro area.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our busiest time of year. The most inquiries we get about anything, the most activity that we have on social media. So snow really dominates what we do, especially during the winter months.
It's just so important because I don't know about you, but sometimes drivers get funky around here in good weather.
They
So
do. They do. I think statistics are like even in like the dry sunshine, sometimes we have more crashes that way. But it's very important because this is a 24-hour region. There is no give us a whole bunch of time, and we know that people operate, especially public safety, around the clock. So it's important for us to get the roads clear as soon as possible.
Which is also why we're so glad that people like you choose to work in VDOT, the Virginia Department of Transportation. Because, like you said, we always need roads. Northern Virginia has the metro system, but the reality is a lot of us do rely on cars to get to and from work. And we couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you.
I happen to like snow, so it makes it kind of easy.
I like snow when I don't have to drive in it.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm glad I'm going to learn some tips and tricks for that today.
Good.
And the floor is yours whenever you are ready to start your presentation.
Great, I'm definitely ready.
Thank you for being here.
Sure. All right. So my name, like Moira said, is Ellen Kamilakis. I'm the Assistant District Administrator for Communications for the Northern Virginia District. That's a whole bunch of words for basically Public Information Officer. So I'm going to talk to you about our snow operations that happen if you're new to the region, if you're not new to the region, if you're interested in the nitty gritty as to how things work for us at snow, you're going to learn it tonight. So a good snapshot of the Northern Virginia district for us is Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, and Arlington counties. And we put Arlington last because Arlington elects to maintain their own secondary roads. In the Commonwealth, VDOT maintains counties, and then the cities and the towns maintain their own roads. But Arlington is unique, and also Henrico County is unique. So we do the primary roads through Arlington and the interstates. So the population of our region, and this might actually be a slightly outdated number, is 2.2 million. We have 24 commuter lots. We have almost 2,200 bridges or large culverts, more than 1,500 traffic signals, and we have 900 employees in our district. Now that comes into play a little bit later on, so remember the number 900. So when it comes to total lane miles, that's how we measure what we are plowing, is more than 14,000 lane miles. What that does not include are turn lanes and what we call gore area, which is sort of the triangular split. It's like a triangular shoulder when you have one road that goes this way and then something else goes that way. You still have to plow the center. So that's the gore. So we have 802 lane miles of interstate. So if you have a 4-lane interstate, that 1 mile of that is 4 lane miles because a truck can only really be in 1 lane at a time. So think of 14,000 lane miles. So the primary roads, we have 1,600. Secondary roads, which is key, 11,000. Secondary roads are generally going to be where your neighborhoods are. And as you see, gravel, 573, frontage, just a few. But the total number of subdivision streets, and that's not lane miles, just the number of subdivision streets are 17,246. So when we often get questions, oh, why aren't you coming into my neighborhood yet? Well, we have 17,245 others that we're working on, but we will get to you, we promise. We have 18 maintenance headquarters. We call them area headquarters. And what those are their maintenance yards. That's where the trucks are. That's where the spreaders are. That's where the salt domes are. So we have one in Arlington because, again, all we maintain there are the primaries. We have 9 in Fairfax. Obviously, based on population, we have 4 in Loudoun and 4 in Prince William County. So what we do is for snow, we divide our district into snow maps. So what you're looking at is very specifically a snow map. We have 648 of these. So when a plow truck driver comes and checks in and he gets his assignment, he or she, they are going to get 1, 2, 3 maybe of these maps and say, here, this is where you're going to be working. We don't do paper. Well, physically we do have paper, but we've gone to a more digital format that's easier for the drivers. And the good thing is 97% of our fleet is contracted. And we have repeat contractors over and over and over. So a lot of the time, who is plowing in your neighborhoods is somebody who has already been there, is familiar with the curves of the road, is familiar with this wonky mailbox off to the side. And they really do take a lot of pride in being able to clear as quickly as possible and be as safe as possible. So this is what one of the snow maps looks like. Imagine 648 of these and imagine it in digital format. So we talk about materials. We can't, push snow with nothing. So we have right now, we start our season off at 100%. So right now we have 120,000 tons of salt on hand, 25,000 tons of sand, and we have 250,000 gallons of brine. And we'll talk about brine a little bit later. So the pieces of equipment that we have generally on hand is about 3,500 for our highest mobilization level. Although we can go a little bit higher than that to about 4,000 when we start adding in heavy equipment. So when we had Snowzilla, the blizzard back in 2016, we had to bring in a lot of heavy equipment, front end loaders, rubber tire loaders, all these different kinds of things that can function in very hefty environments. And a lot of them went up to Loudoun County, where we saw like almost 40 inches of snow there. So when we talk about how many trucks we have out, it's a good idea. It gives you a good idea of how the amount of force that we're putting behind something, and also just how often you're going to be seeing these trucks. And you will see them on the side of the road. We can talk about that a little bit later. They're not wasting time. They are pre-staging. One of the things that I like to say is that Mother Nature doesn't give us a outlook appointment. So we can think that the storm's going to start at 4 o'clock and maybe it starts at 2 o'clock. So we like them to be staged early, just in case, so that we don't get behind the curve on any of that. So we pretty much plan for snow all year long. And one of the things that we do in the off season that I think is kind of interesting is that of all of the vehicles that we have in our district, and remember we have 900 employees, we have all those little, the white VDOT trucks, is that all of the preventative maintenance is done in the off season, so that during snow season, the mechanics can solely dedicate their time to working on any kind of mechanical issues with the plow trucks or the equipment that are related to that. So we start the contract processing in July, where we open up our contract bids so that contractors can say, hey, I want to sign up. Rigging is actually a fun process, and that's what you're looking at here with a picture of Tony from Chantilly. And the black metal frame is what's called an A-frame. And those are mounted onto the front of dump trucks. And from there, the plow blades, the big orange plow blades, are mounted onto the A-frame. So if you see a truck driving around, landscaping truck, construction truck, that has an A-frame on the front, you can say to yourself, oh, I know that they probably are going to be plowing snow a little bit later. So the rigging process to make sure everything is fit, they have spreaders that go into the back of the trucks. They get assigned, they get fitted properly, all of the inspections are done. So that when somebody comes to check in, they already have their plow and their spreader. Oftentimes they stay in our maintenance yards. So it's just here, come in, put your shoes on and go out to work. So then, like I said, vehicle servicing, and then admin functions. We're doing a lot of work with automatic vehicle locator, all kinds of paperwork functions that go into the procurement of that. And then snow monitors. We have an entire group of people that drive around checking the quality of the work of the contractors to ensure that when the contractor says, okay, my map is done. So remember the 648 maps, my map is done. We're going to make sure that we drive it and make sure that the roads are clear, or in neighborhoods, what we call passable. Sorry, that's my cat. You're going to see him possibly running around. And once the snow monitor is able to sort of verify with quality control, then we can clear the map and say, okay, this one is done. So that comes back to the 900 employees in VDOT. So when snow happens, everybody has a snow assignment in our district. So I'm communications, I'm a public information officer, which means I stay doing my function. I talk to the media, I do social media, all different kinds of things. But say you're a project engineer, well, during that time, maybe then you switch over to being a snow monitor, or you switch over to doing office work or automatic vehicle locator team. It's a technology team that we have. So everybody works snow. We throw every single resource that we have at it, and that includes personnel and time. So that's where your snow monitors are going to come in. So if you ever see white, VDOT pickup trucks driving around in the snow, you know that they're going in there checking the quality of the work. So how does our snow mobilization start? We start with our forecast with the National Weather Service. They're very close partners with us, and we talk to them pretty much on a daily basis. And as they see things approaching, and if things start getting worse, getting better, anything, we have constant updates with them and say to our group, okay, let's keep an eye on this. Like probably earlier in this week, we were saying, okay, well, Friday, Saturday looks like, let's keep an eye on that. Whether it materializes or not, at least we have that kind of heads up, knowing that something is potential. From there, the wheels start turning. Once we get a little bit closer to the incident, we say, okay, well, this looks like this is probably going to happen. Sometimes it doesn't. That's the issue with forecasts, is that they're not guarantees. And so if we move forward, we say, okay, based on the forecast that we're getting, this is how we're going to mobilize. We're going to mobilize to this level, which means this many trucks. We're going to start at this time. We're going to have everyone staged at this time, which means we need to start our check-in process sooner. So say we're mobilizing at a level 5, which is our highest, the 3,500 trucks. So 18 area headquarters, 3,500 trucks. Somebody's got to go first. So there's always going to be trucks out there much, much earlier than people think that they should be out there. But somebody has to be processed through the front of the line first. And so that's where you will start seeing them staging. They are always happy to receive any kind of positive feedback. We get all these great stories of residents running out and bringing cookies or bringing snacks, or even little kids waving or anything like that. And when you have a long shift and you're driving, and it's very meticulous work and it's very hard work, those little pick-me-ups are always so great. So we keep an eye out for those kind of stories from the crews to know that they're feeling good about it. And then we share the message with the residencies. So we divide our district into residencies. So we have Fairfax, which is Fairfax County, Loudoun, Prince William, and then we have one called Arlington and Interstates. And that is its own residency, because the interstates are so big, so important to commerce and public safety and everything, that it gets its own residency. So each residency has its entire team of people. And they look at the forecast and they say, based on exactly where I am, this is what I think we're going to do. And we get together and we start talking about it. This is what this one wants to do. This is what this one wants to do. We have a lot of calls and interactions together. Yep, there goes the cat jumping up there. So what you're looking at is a sample of a mobilization plan that we have. So on the side, you can obviously see the snapshot. Then you see Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, Interstate. So these are all blank, but in those blanks, you're going to see this is how many trucks, this is how many cut and drag crews we're going to have. Cut and drag is a tree crew that's on standby. If we know that we're going to have an ice storm, ice is going to weigh heavy on branches. Branches are going to come down, trees are going to come down. And for us to bring in dedicated tree crews to clear that, it frees up our people to be working on other things. So we say whether we're going to have a cut and drag crew, all of those kind of things. So each residency has its own section and is specific. The 4 a.m. report here on the other side is absolutely golden. This, for me, as a public information officer, is the most important piece of information that I get at 4 o'clock in the morning. And whether that seems early or not, that's when media cycles start. And yes, I do indeed do interviews at 4 o'clock in the morning. So the number one question we always get asked is, okay, well, how many trucks do you have out there? Well, as you can see, there's all different kinds of trucks that there could be. And we used to get this, and I would say to myself at 4 o'clock in the morning, I can't add up all of these columns at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I asked them very nicely, and we now have, this is not the most current one, but we now have one little cell where they add up everything automatically for me. So I get my one number, which is fantastic. But we look around rush hour cycles. So we're looking at, okay, whether we tell people to stay off the roads or not, there are still going to be some people that absolutely have to go to work. Public safety, doctors, nurses, all different people like that. So we know that there is work that has to be done and people are going to be out there anyway, and they're usually going to be going with the certain rush hour cycles. This is our mobilization level. It says 21, 22. I didn't have the updated one, but it's very similar. And you can see these are our levels. So we have anti-icing, which is the brining, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We have skeleton crews, which is just simply VDOT personnel, VDOT trucks. And then as you see, it goes from 1 to 5. And you see the amount forecasted. You see the potential pavement temperatures, the chance of precipitation. And so when we get into a blizzard, we're at a 5. And we mobilized a couple times last year at a level 5 because it's 6 and above. And as you can see, you know, at the very bottom, and it's broken up by the different residencies, at the very bottom, our absolute full load is about 4,000 pieces of equipment that we have access to. We also, you see, I mentioned there are possibly HERT teams, HERT, and what that is a highway emergency response team. So say Bristol District in Southwest Virginia gets a tremendous amount of snow. And we get nothing up here. We get cold rain, which is not uncommon. If they need support and personnel and equipment, we can send a bunch of our crews down to Bristol if we know that it's not going to affect us. We send them down. So it's a fluid movement within VDOT of helping, you know, between the districts. So that's when we start looking at, okay, if we're at a 5, do we also need some HERT teams as well? So I will talk about brining. This is one of my favorite pictures because I was in a crash cushion, which is the trailing safety vehicle, and the light hit it just right. And I'm like, oh, look, it's a rainbow. So I thought that was cute. So that's a tanker. That is a brine tanker, and they're very big and heavy and slow. And when you're in them and you're riding around in them and you have 2,000, 3,000 gallons of brine in there and you turn a corner, you're going to feel it. You're going to hear it sloshing around. You're going to feel it moving around. And so we have a trailing vehicle behind it because that is not the vehicle that you want to run into. You do not want to run into a brine truck. So we talk about pretreatment. We talk about brine lines. And what it does is pretreatment is effective basically the first hour of a storm. And what it does is it reduces ice from bonding to asphalt or concrete. And it gives us just that initial bit of time that we can get all of the trucks moving and starting to spread salt. Because again, 14,000 lane miles, we got to think about that. And then what we started doing a couple of years ago that we've seen some success with, actually, let me back up a little bit. Let me tell you what brine is. So brine is 23% salt and 77% water. It's a mixture, and they're mixed in these big vats in the area headquarters and the maintenance yards. And it's like a witch's cauldron. You know, they're dumping the rock salt in, they're dumping the water in. They have all kinds of sensors to be able to test what percentage the salt is. They have to get it just right. And once they have these batches done, which we have 125,000 gallons at this point, they are able to hook it into the tankers and fill the tankers, and then they go around. So what happens is the truck goes out, it has the nozzles in the back. And when it sprays down wet. But because of the salt in it, once it evaporates, it leaves that little line of salt residue on it, which means it's putting a little bit of salt onto the road, where if you were to dump rock salt on a dry road, it's simply going to bounce and it's going to roll off into the shoulders. And it's of no use, and we're dumping excessive amounts of salt for no reason into the environment. So we've been piloting brine treatments during a storm, not just before a storm. So we've said, okay, in Loudoun County, we said, let's have some tankers out there and see how well they do with just brine, as opposed to just dumping this huge rock salt. And we've seen actually a lot of success there. And I think we're branching out a little bit this year into Fairfax with the pilot, and Prince William. So anything that we can do to reduce our salt usage, we're definitely very focused on. So then the key is, do we brine before every single storm? No. If a storm is going to start as rain, we're not going to brine. Because what's going to happen is you're going to put the brine down, the rain is going to start, and it's just going to wash it all away. So knowing that it's going to come down as actual snow is key to that. Also, depending upon how much we're forecast to get, sometimes we'll do a partial brining, which is just interstates, I think some primaries, and then bridges, ramps, overpasses, any elevated surfaces. So the elevated surfaces are going to freeze before anything else, because there's nothing underneath it. There's just a free movement of air underneath it, where the picture that you're looking at, there's solid ground there. So that's going to take longer to freeze. So we always do the bridges, ramps, overpasses. And one of the fun things is, as a communicator, you're always trying to get people's attention and their awareness of what's happening. And a lot of times people get busy with their day-to-day and their work, and they don't pay attention to the forecast, and they don't realize the snowstorm is coming. And then they get out of work and they see the brine lines on the road, and they say, oh, okay, I guess we're getting some snow. So it's a good little early warning visual for us. And the brine is usually going to go down 24 hours ahead of time, maybe 48 at best, because you don't want people driving over it and, you know, sort of making it dissipate and everything. So that's usually the window of time that when you see brine lines down, you're within, you know, a day or two of precipitation that's been forecast. So we work interstates, major roads, major subdivisions in a priority order. So the interstates are always going to be done. They have their own dedicated group, and they are done immediately because we cannot lose the interstates for commerce, for all kinds of important reasons. We then are working on major primary roads. So that's, you know, Route 1, Route 50, Route 29, Route 15, all different kinds of heavy volume roads like that. The key for us in subdivisions is that we don't go into subdivision roads until there are 2 inches accumulated on the ground. So, hey, Ellen, what if we only got 1 inch of snow? Then the trucks are not going to come in there. And that's for several reasons. The thickness of the asphalt and the base that you're going to find on the interstate is very different than in a subdivision. So the interstates are built for a tremendous amount of traffic, a tremendous amount of heavy traffic, and the thickness is there. In neighborhoods, it's not. So if we start sending in very, very heavy loaded dump trucks filled with salt, dumping salt in neighborhoods, we're going to degrade the asphalt very, very, very quickly. So we generally do not go into the neighborhoods with dump trucks. They're usually big, heavy pickup trucks like F-350s or a little bit bigger, but that we generally go in with sand for traction. We don't want to be going into neighborhoods and where people live and people's yards and everything, and putting so much salt down. The flip side is that oftentimes people, when they take care of their own driveways, use way too much salt. So they put a tremendous amount down. So our goal of trying to keep some of the salt out of the neighborhoods isn't always, it on our end. We keep up the deal. So so what we say for our goals are passable lane goals, and a passable road in the neighborhood is not going to be bare pavement. It is not going to be curb to curb. It's going to be a path that an emergency vehicle can get through. Somebody with front wheel drive can get through. It's not going to be 2 lanes. It's not going to be blacktop. Because we have, again, those, 11,000, whatever, or 17,000 subdivision roads. We have a lot that we have to get to. So it's really just so that people have freedom of movement and that it's not, black pavement. The interstates, they're going to essentially be bare pavement, because at those speeds and those volumes, that we can't afford to just cut out little grooves there. So if we get 2 to 4 inches of snow, we say it's going to take us probably about 24 hours to get everything passable. 4 to 6, it goes to 48 hours. 6 inches or more, it could be 72 hours or more. And we are generally very good at meeting those goals. One of the ones that was a little challenging for us was Snowzilla, was the blizzard, because you're looking, 6 inches of snow, 72 hours. And then you look at 40 inches of snow in Loudoun County and you kind of do the math to sort of equate that. That's not 72 hours. So we ask for patience. We know that I think it's gotten better since the pandemic, of people not wanting to be at home a lot, because once everybody, a lot of people started working from home, they're like, this is great. I don't want to have to leave the house. But before, people got very stir crazy and wanting to get out and immediately. And we, like I said, we do this as fast as we can. We live in the community too, and we don't want to be, trapped anywhere that we don't have to be. So we just really ask for everyone's patience, that we work around the clock. It's 24-hour operations when it comes to snow. We all shift to 12-hour shifts. So there's no period of time that people aren't doing something or they're not plowing. So then next one. So additional priorities that we have. Shoulders, ramps, turn lanes, intersections. Intersections are interesting because I've gone out, I'll go out and I'll ride along with one of the plow truck drivers and do live tweeting and interview and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I always noticed was, in certain situations, they seemed to dump more salt, and they would dump more salt ahead of an intersection, in the ramps, turn lanes, that kind of thing. And I didn't understand. And so I started asking, why are you doing this? And it's anywhere that you're going to be heavily braking. So if you're coming to an intersection and the light turns red, you're going to start braking. You get into a turn lane and you start deaccelerating, you're going to start braking. You go around a corner, you're going to be braking. So they put that extra there to make sure that there isn't ice in those very, very tricky areas where you absolutely need to stop. We also clear 12,000 park and ride spaces. One of the questions we always get is sidewalks and trails. And as we continue to deliver more projects that have bicycle and pedestrian facilities with them and retrofit existing infrastructure to that, there's more people that are walking on the snow, walking on the sidewalk and using that. So crews are trained every year and asked, don't dump snow there, be very mindful, because people need to get around in ways that aren't necessarily cars. And we have special care near schools, any emergency facilities, hospitals, any of those kinds of things. And then we ask residents and businesses with the local ordinance, especially in Fairfax, is generally the responsibility is going to be that of the property owner. So if it's a business, it's their responsibility. If it's a house, it's the homeowner's responsibility. So we really ask everybody to try to play a part with that as much as possible. How do you stay informed? This is my favorite slide. So we have a Twitter account. If you don't follow us already, VDOT Nova, and it's amazing Twitter account, if I can say so. We put out a lot of information on our Twitter account, all during storms, ahead of storms, even right now, talking at night. We're part of the social media community, so it's not just only transportation. It is truly a community of people. I maintained that Twitter account for almost the past 7 years, and I was recently promoted, and so I brought in a social media manager to take that over, and she's doing an incredible job. But I can attest, for those 7 years, that community of people are real people. I've met a lot of people out of that community in person. It's a very welcoming place. It's a place that you can come and ask questions, come and get help. So we really encourage everybody to come and follow us on Twitter, and really see what goes on during snow. We have an emergency page, as we call it, virginiadot.org, Nova Emergency. That's where you can see the Twitter feed, you can see the news releases, you can see we post status updates when we're mobilized as to what's going on, what's the latest ask that we have of residents, and any question that you could have. We have our fact sheet, as you see on the side. We have that there. 511 is a great site, 511 Virginia, because you can check all of the road conditions and you can get access to all of the traffic cameras, which is key to be able to say, what's going on there? Looks like a backup there. You can go and click on the nearest camera and you'll likely see what exactly is going on there, especially if there's an incident. So we encourage everybody, before they go anywhere, check 511 and see what the road conditions are, see if there's any incidents, that if you need to, take a different route. And then the VDOT Plows site is active when we have, once we go into the subdivisions, which is once 2 inches, not just have fallen, but have accumulated. And that's where you can go and see where the plow trucks are at that moment. And that's when I refer to our automatic vehicle locator team. They maintain and watch where all of the trucks are at any given time and make sure that there's communication between the truck and the system, and that it hadn't, gone awry. We need to see where everybody is. So that's VDOT Plows. That happens only during, heavier snowstorms. And I purposely left a lot of time in this because if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But in the meantime, I'll turn it back over to Maura.
Well, Ellen, either good for you or bad for you, I have questions. So you're not getting out of questions tonight.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
So I saw that you have a beautiful cat in your background.
That's true.
What is your opinion on the statement that people say that if you don't have salt and your car gets stuck, that you can use cat litter? Because we hear about that all the time, and I wanted to get it from the expert. Is that an accurate statement? Or
yeah, the kind that you want to get is, you don't want to get any of the he knows we're talking about. You don't want to get any of the real fancy granular kind. You want to get the old school chunky kind, because what you don't want is when it comes in contact with liquid for it to just clump up and get gooey. You want it to stay somewhat rocky. So if you get that, what it is that's for traction. Anything that you can get a texture under your tires. I use ice melt, but I also have never gotten stuck in. I'm sorry, let me dial that back. I've gotten stuck in the sno once.
I was going to say, you just jinxed that, my friend.
No, I this during the blizzard, and I had worked for VDOT for 3 months at that point, and I got stuck in my Jeep. And what did I do? Because I had just left PSTOC, our operations center, and I called them and I was like, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And they immediately sent a truck to come and get me where I needed to go and everything like that. So that's one of the wonderful things of working for VDOT, is that everybody really kind of cares about each other in the agency and is going to do what they need to do to help other people. But yeah, have that, your ice scraper. The ones that I got one years ago in Costco, and it's telescoping, and the head twists on it so that it has a brush on I'm short, I'm 5'4", so I can't necessarily get everything off without, a telescoping arm. But you, again, don't want to be driving with snow on the top of your car. And we have names for all of these things. Snow hawks, portholes, rolling ninjas is one of them. All these different things that people do with
Is
their
rolling ninja when the snow like flies off your car?
No, rolling ninjas are
Really?
when you're driving without your headlights in inclement weather.
That is scary. That's not.
So the snow
That
hawk
is very
is
scary.
almost like a mohawk where you get it off of the sides, but you leave it all on the top, and that's the snow hawk. The portholes are when somebody just simply takes the windshield and they just brush off the area right in front of the driver's seat, but not the passenger seat. So it's this tiny little porthole, like driving around with the car.
I've seen it tons of times. And
we see the worst things. We see the worst things.
I'm going to be honest, I'm always afraid of that snow that is not taken off the windshield, flying off of them and hitting me. Not to be selfish, but I don't want my car to get damaged from them not taking the snow off of their car.
It's not even your car getting damaged. It's something that can cause a serious crash on your part. So you're talking about bodily injury at this point. So it is very serious. And when they come off of the tractor trailers, especially in giant sheets of ice, it's just terrifying, especially on the interstates at those speeds. So yeah, those are awful.
We have a question on the screen.
Oh, great.
Should we always have salt or litter in our cars if we are expecting snow?
Yes. So I will answer it a little bit, and then I will defer to emergency management experts to talk about car kits. Okay. I have a car kit in the spring and summertime, and then I have a car kit in the fall and winter. And in that, I keep things so that if I am stuck in my car for 4 hours, something, I've got water, I've got snacks, I've got blanket. I have a flashlight, I have a first aid kit, I have kitty litter, I have all different kinds of things like this, a scraper, extra set of gloves. I carry extra snow boots and socks. And I, of course, have my VDOT vest and my high vis, helmet, all this kind of stuff with me. And that's to just assume that even something as simple as a spin out can be a little terrifying, and all of the wreckers are out. They are working. The towing companies are incredible, and they're incredible partners to us, but it might take a little bit for them to get to you. So make sure that you're self-sufficient, but I will defer to Moira, who can probably talk a little bit more about emergency kits.
Thank you. And building on top of that, I always say that, like you were saying, how if something happens, unfortunately, with everyone helping everyone, there is a chance that, help is going to take a while and you need to be there for yourself. And I am a huge, huge fan of just keeping an emergency blanket in your glove box. That simple thing is great for, as you know, holding your body heat in and keeping you warm, because if your car is stuck in the snow for a really long time, it can run out of gas. And then unfortunately, we're stuck in the snow in a cold car. And an emergency blanket's not going to make you the coziest thing in the world, but it might keep you going until the first responders can get there. So it's definitely.
And also it's soothing in my mind. If I were to spin out and I were stuck there, I would be scared. I'd be scared that somebody else is going to hit me, or how long is it going to be? And being able to wrap yourself in a comfy blanket can kind of calm you down. I don't think we talk enough about emotions and stress that comes along.
Adults do not grow out of the concept of comfort items. The comfort items just change. Yeah. And I think that is a great point. We saw a lot, especially with COVID, that adult coloring books got a lot more popular for that exact reason, as like a de-escalation calming tactic. Yeah, I have multiple in all candidness.
Nice.
And I had another question just about, would you recommend that unless absolutely necessary, stay off the roads if it is snowing? Let the plows do their job. Let people have space to do their job.
That is the number one ask that we have of people, is that when we're out there, if you do not absolutely have to be out there, meaning you are a police officer, you are a firefighter, you are a doctor, you're a nurse, you have to go to work. Just don't. I know people say, oh, it's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. I'm from Rochester. I know how to drive in the snow. But it really complicates things when you have in Fairfax, 1.2 million people saying that same thing, and getting out on the roads. You're not going to have the same volume of lanes that you normally have, because if certain ones aren't fully cleared yet and everybody's sort of channeling into one, And then the trucks are huge. They're absolutely huge. Literally, it's like climbing a ladder to get into them.
They are a
Yeah.
lot to see. I'm not gonna lie, like, I am so glad that they are there and they keep us safe, but those plows are a little scary. Those are gigantic shovels on a truck.
Yeah,
So
and they're
you got
not going to stop on a dime either. So the
Whoa.
blades in the front are 12 feet long. 12 feet long. A normal traffic lane is like 11 feet, which means they drive sort of a kilter.
Mhm.
And you're driving in the plow is always pointed in the right because it's trying to push the snow up, off into that direction. But these things are huge. They're probably 36, maybe 40 inches tall. And they're steel, and and you would be surprised at some of the things. I was out on a ride along once, and we're sitting there, and it was like a don't block the box situation. And so we were where we needed to be, and these other people were coming over to try to stuff themselves in, and people were getting so close to the blade, and it was like, do you know that this thing is like this thing can do, like, don't get so close to it.
That is a gamble that is just unnecessary to take.
Yeah. And also, what we always tell people is back off of the plow trucks. If you're driving along and you hear little pingings,
Oh, the tiny rocks.
because you're hearing the rock salt hitting you because you're too close. Because the rock salt comes down and it'll bounce maybe a little bit, but if there's a lot of snow, it'll absorb it. But if you are that close that you're getting it off of the spreader, like, back off. Seriously. Again, that's something you don't want to run into either, because those things they're just a solid brick wall at that point. And every impact is going to be absorbed on your end. It's not going to be on that truck.
On that note, whenever it comes to winter weather safety, something I like to stress is, let's say you did grow up in Rochester, New York, and you're really comfortable on the roads in snow. That does not mean the person in the lane next to you is great at it. And that does not mean that they could unfortunately end up hitting you on the side.
Exactly.
So just because, you as an individual are comfortable, that does not mean it's time to do this gamble. It is time to stay home, stay safe, use this as an excuse to drink hot chocolate and relax.
I'm all for that, especially extra marshmallows. But when you look at how poorly people drive on a beautiful day, and then you say, I want to chance it and see how this guy drives in the snow and the ice. Like, just don't do it if you don't have to do it. That is just not. And I'm not even bringing Maryland driver jokes into this. This is just simply terrible Virginia drivers as well. Like, just
there's bad drivers everywhere, no matter where you are.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and if you see on the screen, Marco says that his street has a cul-de-sac at the end, like a dead end, and the snowplow driver says that it's not on the map. Do you recommend that Marco contacts maybe his homeowners association? They might have more information.
Marco can reach out to me if he wants to. So
Okay.
you're on, this is potentially a pipe stem, and some of them are ours and some of them are not. And so I can verify that. And sometimes they get overlooked. And so we can double check that and make sure that you're not being overlooked for whatever reason. The cul-de-sacs are always the last things to get done in a neighborhood, because they are the furthest out. They're going to do the main artery, and then they're going to start branching off. And then when they get to those cul-de-sacs, that's it. They're done. It's pushed out. And that's the strategy, is in how you're clearing it, as opposed to like trying to go to the cul-de-sac and working your way backwards. But Marco, I don't know if there's a way for, if you want to tweet us, or if there's a way that we can sort of pass my email on to you.
So I actually know Marco, so I can definitely handle that on my end and connect you guys.
Yeah, let's double check.
I am going to CC myself because I'm curious and nosy.
Yes, I can definitely look into that, because if that's ours, we should definitely be doing that, and we'll make sure we're doing that.
So a couple other things. I always like to say, you mentioned car emergency kits, and working in emergency management, that's my spiel. I love that kind of stuff. And I love how you mentioned extra socks. I think extra socks is such a basic thing that gets looked over. So when it comes to the cold, wouldn't you say it just doesn't hurt to have extra socks in your car?
They don't take up a lot of room.
Are terrible.
Yeah. And because what's going to happen is, what happens to ice and snow when it warms up?
It melts.
you have wet feet now. So even if you have waterproof boots or something like that, if they're not perfect and you get that wet sock and you get cold wet sock, it's not good for you. And I have a bunch of these. Like I run warm. I wear t-shirts year round. Like I don't get cold. But so I wear normally thin socks and whatever, but I have a couple of these. I think they're from REI, just super heavy wool, almost like hiking socks, that when I go out with the crews, and I put my snow boots on, I put these things on because your feet need to stay warm, just like your hands need to stay warm. And, you know, I always heard, invest in things that are going to, between you and the ground. Tires, mattresses, shoes.
I've never heard that before, but you know, that is a great saying.
Yeah. But really your feet, like that is, and it's so simple. Like you could literally, with women, we can just stuff them in our purse. And it makes a world of difference just to have something that's dry.
On that note, I always like to say, if you're starting your emergency kit, you know, for any season, let's say you're at square one, you don't have one, everyone starts somewhere. I'm a huge fan of starting at the dollar store. I'm a huge fan of the concept that it doesn't have to be this very large financial purchase at the beginning. It is something that you can get your basics from, maybe at the dollar store, and then build upon. They have, you know, travel size things that are fantastic in an emergency kit. Like I'm a huge fan of starting with the travel sized first aid kits. It doesn't cover for every situation. And in a perfect world, you know, people would build upon that and make their first aid kit better. But partial preparedness is better than no preparedness. Correct. We're going for progress, not perfection.
Yeah. And we, you know, not to negate that at all, but
of course
we cannot be in Fairfax County and not give a shout out to Fairfax County Fire Department. They are absolutely incredible. So it's a great time to remind ourselves of how fortunate we are with the public safety agencies that we have, especially in this region, and the investment that leaders have put into saying it is important for us to make sure our communities are taken care of. And so we're going to invest. And that Fairfax Fire is a perfect example of it there.
The fire department, I don't think people understand how much they do when there aren't fires going on.
Yeah.
You know, I think our public safety agencies in general just have a huge load in Fairfax County. And like you were saying, we're very grateful to live in this area. And we're very grateful for the support that comes with the title of Fairfax County.
Definitely. But yeah, so you're absolutely correct. It isn't a race to get everything done immediately. And really, it's just those basics. One of the things that I have is it almost looks like a water cooler thing, like the 5-gallon thing that you put when you flip it over and put it on top of a water cooler. And I fill that with water, and it gives me a lot of water, but it gives a lot of thickness to the plastic. So if I have just water bottles in the back of the car and it's 30, 25 degrees out, I risk with the thinness of that plastic, the water itself freezing. But when you get something like that, the walls of that are so thick that your water is going to stay fluid for quite a decent amount of time.
That is a great point. I didn't know this existed until I got into the emergency management field, but you can actually buy canned water.
Oh yeah.
And I love the concept of canned water. I do too. It's very funky.
Yeah.
And to anyone listening that has not had canned water, it doesn't have a metallic taste.
No.
That was my biggest fear with it, because we had some that were about to expire.
Yeah.
And I was like, when in Rome, we're going to try it. And it's fantastic. And you don't have to worry about microplastics.
Yep.
I will say with canned water, there is that extra step of having a can opener. And a can opener is commonly forgotten in an emergency kit because we talk about canned foods, but we don't talk about the equipment that is necessary to access canned foods.
That's absolutely a can opener is key. Absolutely.
Well, this has been fantastic, Ellen, and I am so glad that you agreed to do this. It is so interesting to hear someone so warm talk about snow, because you are really personable and warm, and I think you are a fantastic guest for this webinar. So really, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that is listening to this either live or the recording. Thank you to everyone that commented and asked questions. And we look forward to the next webinar on the new year. Look forward to the 2023 first webinar of the year. Thank you.